Started. Okay, folks, this is the RFTA Board of Directors meeting Thursday, January 9th. Up first, we need a roll call.
Greg Bushman, Alyssa Shank, Jeannie McQueenie,
She's here.
David Knight, Aaron Zielinski, Art Riddle,
Here.
Tom Friedstein,
Here.
and I believe that's everybody. We have a quorum.
That's us. Great. Thank you. Up first, we have the minutes from December 12th. Unless there's discussion on that, I'd look for a motion to approve.
I'll move to approve the minutes.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Amazing. Okay, up next is public comment. I think we limit public comment to 3 minutes. If anybody'd like to say something public here, we'll start in the room and then we'll go online. Come up to the mic if you'd like to say something. And I don't see everybody rushing to the microphone this morning. So I guess we'll just bring it back. Well, okay then. Online, do we have any hands up online? Is it *9 to raise your hand, or is that, I don't know how to do it on this one. I don't see any hands up. So we're going to bring it back. Do we have any items to add to the agenda? Kurt?
We do not.
Okay, and then any board member comments?
I'll make a comment.
Please do.
I just want to thank RFTA for all the good work over the holidays. I know that the weather wasn't super cooperative on days, and the roads and snowmass were icy and messy, and the traffic was backed up. And I just appreciate that the buses were running and people seemed to be able to get to and from, even though maybe it took a little longer. So thank you guys.
Right on. I want to second that. I used the bus with my family and it worked seamlessly. It's just so great to have that option to be able to look out the window instead of being white knuckled on the steering wheel. So yeah, thank you. And thanks to all the drivers. And I make a point of very vocally, loudly thanking the driver every time I get off the bus, just because I keep hoping that, and I think it does catch on, other people do it. So.
Right. Well, same here. We used it heavily over these holidays, and it was flawless. It was
Nice.
Just such a nice thing to have. So
We'll be sure to pass that along to our teams.
Yeah, please thank everyone for all their work. And the other thing is, with all the confusion and issues we have regarding transit and traffic stops and the entrance to Aspen, the ongoing, circular debate on that one. The one thing that remains solid and strong is RFTA, and RFTA is just getting better. And I think we're doing the absolute to provide transit. And it's so nice to have a solid backbone. Imagine if we didn't have RFTA with the current situations we have with traffic. So once again, thanks to everyone.
Good. I think
Yeah,
Tom.
Tom.
Just build on what you said about the back.
This is Art. I've had a hand up for a while.
Sorry.
Ooh,
Oh,
Art.
didn't see it.
Donna?
Sorry, Art.
Huh?
Hold on, Art.
Go ahead.
Hold on just a sec.
He can go.
Okay, go ahead, Art.
May I speak? May I speak?
Who?
May I speak?
Yes, we've
can't
got you,
seem
Art.
to
We
hear
can
us.
hear you.
A couple things. One, I needed to leave the meeting at 11:30. And 2 and 3, I want to thank RFTA for cleaning up the park and ride in Newcastle. And number 3, putting up with the construction of the roundabout, which isn't going to be completed probably till springtime. Thank you.
Thanks, Art. I don't know if you can hear me or not. Doesn't seem like you can. Okay, Tom.
Okay.
I can.
Okay, great.
Okay. Again, I want to introduce myself, Tom Friedstein, alternate for Alyssa from Snowmass Village. I'd just like to update the group about what we're hoping to do in Snowmass. We're hoping to move forward with the new transit center, similar in function to what was proposed a couple of years ago, but instead of being all on one massive one level, it would be on 2 levels with the RFTA buses on the top and the town shuttles below it. We think that resolves a lot of the concerns that our community had about the size and massiveness of the previous design. The current design, which is just conceptual at this point, shows 5 active RAFTA positions and 1 holding position. So a total of 6 RAFTA buses on the platform, and 6 or 7 town shuttles below it. We've worked for a long time. We wanted to combine both transit systems in one location for all the obvious transit reasons. Now, we're on a very short time frame. We have to commit as a town by March 3rd in order to retain a very large grant that we had received before from the federal government through the state. And so over the next 2 months, we're going to be getting the design to a point where we can show it to the public. We're going to be looking at financing options. We're looking at possible other grant opportunities because right now it looks like we might have a $20 million shortfall. So we would be required as a town to ensure to the government that we would step up and make up any shortfall if necessary in order to go forward with this grant, which is expiring quickly, as many of you know about. So we're very excited about it. We have a very intense 2 months ahead of us to try to get this in front of our public and to get town council to agree and move forward on it. So I just wanted to update everybody.
Great, thanks, Tom. I wanted to note that Colin has come in. Colin Laird is with us, so we have Carbondale. If I could, I just wanted to say, we received notice the other day that we've received the RAISE grant for our multimodal transit hub by the airport, Pitkin County. So Francie Jacober and I were in DC, I guess about a month and a half ago, and had an opportunity to talk to the DOT and the FAA and impressed upon them how important this was. And sure is nice when they call you to tell you got it worked.
That's amazing.
How often do you go and wonder if it was worth flying to DC, as we've done and been proven, it worked early last year as well, the last time we went for RAFTA. So anyway, we're moving forward and everybody's confident now we've got public support. I'm going to move on to consent agenda unless someone else has a comment. I don't see anyone else. First up, thank you. Thanks for reminding me of it. Just yell at us, whoever that was. Somebody else want to?
I don't think he wants to comment. I think he just joined.
Oh, just joined. Okay. And who's that? Sorry.
Tori.
It's Tori. Hey, Tori. Didn't recognize the hat and the shirt in the office. Welcome. Okay, we're at the consent agenda, resolution 2025-01. Hey, the first one of the year. Settlement agreement, mutual release of claims for Zlotnick and Paul Tadoon. I'm going to throw this to you.
Well, it's on the consent agenda.
Oh, you're right. Okay, let me read the rest of them. Sorry, I always do that. 2502 is designating a location for posting public notices of RAFTA Board of Directors meetings. C is 2025-3 intergovernmental agreement for transit services in unincorporated Garfield County into non-member municipalities. If somebody wants to pull any of those, they can. Otherwise, we could vote on them. I'd accept a motion.
So moved.
A second.
All in favor? So we're not going to have a chat about this, I guess, if we can just keep on moving unless somebody wants to. If you wouldn't mind, very brief summary, would it be helpful for me?
Well, for those online, they can hear me turn on the microphone. This is one of the several areas on the railroad corridor where we have disputes with regard to boundary descriptions and so forth, encroachment. So yesterday, the CEC met, and some of you were in that meeting. We're really winnowing down to almost a handful of all the encroachments, and this is one in the list that we're going to resolve, which is basically recognizing that there's a fence encroachment in the property here in Carbondale, and that will be resolved within 2 years, and the boundaries will be established so that there's no longer any dispute.
Right, thank you. I just want to say, people, whenever I mention it, people seem to be surprised that we maintain that corridor. And I guess we take it for granted, or we don't talk about it too often, or it doesn't come out, but The public is always kind of fascinated to hear we've got that right of way all the way up the valley. Maybe it's helpful to remind the public that we have that. I'm going to keep moving. Presentations, action items, year-end RAF review. Kurt.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. This is the board meeting each year where we get to kind of highlight and show off what we've accomplished the previous year. So this should hopefully be a fun presentation. We also, I think, have a pretty light agenda today, so feel free if there's questions, comments that want to be made. I think we have time for it, so feel free to stop me at any point. 2024 was a big year for us. And let me see if I can get this working. This is a very powerful new microphone. Okay. You can see this first slide here. Oops. Okay. So, as many of you know, the pandemic, the worldwide pandemic, really took a toll on public transportation across the globe. And many systems are still deep in their recovery from the pandemic in terms of recovering their ridership from pre-pandemic levels. You can see here on this chart, we have nearly reached our pre-pandemic ridership. Our high prior to the pandemic was about 5.5 million passenger boardings. We broke 5 million this year. That was a big milestone for us. We're very excited to be able to do that. We're near all the way back to where we were prior to the pandemic. You can see how far we dropped that first year in 2020. We were down to 2.6 million passenger boardings. It's about a 92% increase since 2020 where we've gotten to. So I think it's a testament to the services that RFTA provides, but also the critical nature of the public transportation system in this region. That it really is incredibly important the economy of this region, how it functions, of us being able to get workers from their homes to their places of work. So moving on here, we also, as you all know, have other services that RFTA provides. We also provide paratransit service, which is a service to individuals who cannot access our fixed route system due to their abilities. We have two types of paratransit, one that we provide through a contract with Garfield County, which is named the Traveler Service. So that is for pretty much all of Garfield County that we provide those services. There's a defined boundary that we serve. And then we have RFTA Paratransit. So that's paratransit service that's within 3/4 of a mile of a local fixed route bus route. So that's pretty much occurs in City of Aspen and Glenwood Springs where those services are provided. But in 2024, we provided over 15,000 passenger trips with our paratransit services. You can see we have the Rio Grande Trail, which we were just discussing. And honestly, it's probably one of the greatest assets that this region has is this dedicated corridor preserved for future mass transit needs down the road. But it's currently utilized as a, I'll say, recreation and commuter trail. And we saw over 290,000 trail users in 2024.
Kurt, how is that measured?
We have counters.
We do, okay.
Yeah. Financially, as you all probably remember, over the course of this year, we secured over 48 million in federal grants. And they went primarily to two major efforts. One was for building out the remaining phases of our Glenwood Springs campus that would provide phases 6A, 6B, and 8. 6A is the transit center that will be at the West Glenwood Park and Ride. It'll be very similar to the Ruby Park Transit Center. So it'll be staffed, it'll have customer service, restrooms, staging areas for the buses, parking for our customers. 6B is a new administration building and training building, operations center for RFTA. You can see a rendering of it there in the lower left corner of the screen. That's would be located on what we refer to as the lower lot of our Glenwood campus. It's just off Wilshire Road. And we also received $15.5 million to assist with purchasing 10 electric buses. That was a 100% grant where there was no local match required. So they provided 100% of the funding for us to purchase those 10 electric buses that would bring our total electric fleet up to 18. We're expecting to take delivery of those buses in probably 2026. The time frame on deliveries has continued to extend since the pandemic. It used to be about 12 months when you order a bus and then take receipt of it. Now it's reaching upwards of 24 months. And those new buses, just to highlight, we have entered into a contract this past year, a 5-year contract with Gillig. And they're one of the major bus manufacturers in the country. There's not a lot, but they're one of the big ones, actually owned by the Crown family, who's local to Aspen. So those will be Gillig buses that we'll be purchasing. This one is just acknowledging we have a new CEO this year after 36 years. So it is somewhat of a big deal for RFTA.
Familiar face.
Yeah. So we note here that we did approve and formally adopt our climate action plan, which was an award-winning climate action plan. We were recognized by the Federal Transit Administration for our dedication to sustainability and innovation in reducing greenhouse gas emissions. And we received an award at their national conference.
Congratulations. It's fantastic.
We also updated our 5-year strategic plan back in August. So we now have a roadmap for our next 5 years of advancing all the various goals that we have as an organization. As I mentioned, we adopted our first climate action plan for our organization that identified goals of slashing our greenhouse gas emissions by 50% by 2030 and 90% 2050. We also completed and adopted our RFTA zero emission vehicle transition plan, which will lays out a roadmap for us transitioning our fleet to zero emission, 100% zero emission by 2050. First and last mile mobility, again, a priority for our organization this past year. We do have a first and last mile mobility fund where we issue grant awards to our member jurisdictions. This past year, we issued about $764,000 to various projects throughout the valley to enhance mobility solutions across our member jurisdictions. The Carbondale Park and Ride and Pickens County Bike Share, we expanded our bike share recycle program at those locations. Carbondale launched their downtowner microtransit service this past year in August. Carbondale continues to be one of the drivers with our bike share program at WeCycle, with over 17,000 riders having used that service, with 25% traveling to or from the Carbondale Park and Ride. The Basalt Connect had over 35,000 passengers in 2024. 18% of those passengers used the Basalt Connect to access RFTA fixed routes. WeCycle overall surpassed 250,000 riders in 2024. 44% of all bike share rides the bus stops. So we were also building a bunch of things this past year. One of our large projects, multi-year projects, we were able to wrap up this past fall. It's the 27th Street pedestrian and bicycle underpass. That was about a $22 million project in the city of Glenwood Springs that really enhanced the safety and efficiency of that intersection for providing safe connections on the Rio Grande Trail under 27th Street, as well as safe connections to our 27th Street transit station for our customers. That project employed about 658 construction workers, 20 consultants, and 4 RFTA employees. So definitely had an economic impact for our local communities as well. I highlight this in the CEO report as well, but on December 16th, we officially opened our new operations center, 70,000 square foot operations center in West Glenwood Springs. This is a facility that provides indoor storage for 60 buses. We also have about close to a 10,000 square foot operations center above the garage area where we now have our entire operations team housed. So we have our dispatch center there. We have our supervisors, our managers, our directors located. That's where our bus operators check in. There's just a great synergy that's now occurring within our operations team there in West Glenwood Springs by being able to have them all together for really the first time ever. We also did some work out here on the Rio Grande corridor this summer. We had one major trail bridge repair at the Roaring Fork Bridge. They're just outside of Carbondale. We had some shoring up of the foundations of that bridge that needed to occur. We do conduct bridge inspections every year of all of the bridges that we own and maintain in the Rio Grande corridor. I'm not sure how many we have. Somebody might know. No? Angie might be able to chime in and tell us how many bridges we have. But
5.
it is a responsibility that we have to ensure that we're providing safe infrastructure for our customers. And that was a big project for summer, which did have some impacts. We had to close that bridge down during the work and detour around that. But our users of the trail system are very accommodating of that work. 5 bridges, Angela says. Thank you. And we also repaved about 3,800 linear feet of trail just south of Carbondale. So I think that was between Emma Road and Catherine Store. Employee housing continues to be a priority and center of focus for RFTA. In the last couple of years, we purchased a hotel in Glenwood Springs. Used to be the Roadway Inn on Highway 6. We've been renovating that facility over the last year, and by the end of this month, that facility open for employees to be able to move in. So that's about 42 units that we will now, new units that we'll have available for RFTA employees to be moving into. They're studio units with kitchenettes. They'll all have their own parking space. We've also converted some of the manager unit to provide additional storage for the tenants for their toys and equipment to be able to enjoy the area that we live in. So this is very exciting for us to be able to offer this, and it will allow us then to start reducing some of our leased units that we have throughout the valley that we have employees in.
Is there a plan for the opening? Is there a ceremony or a celebration upon opening of that?
We can
I'm not
consider
sure we need
that.
one. Yeah, I'm not asking for it. I'm just wondering. I realize I don't know the place.
We certainly can. Maybe there is What's nice is, with hotels, they usually have sort of the continental breakfast area where folks can come in, and we've kind of joked that that's now going to be the Friday afternoon wine tasting and cheese lounge, so that we can have a little event in. So yeah, we'll consider if there's something like that we can do.
Colin has a question.
Well, just along those lines, I'm wondering if a bit of a tour of some of this new infrastructure would be appropriate. Actually, what popped into my mind, Kurt, is at the new maintenance facility. I don't know if there's a big room that the board could actually have their meeting there at one point, just so we get to see the facility. It's very impressive. I don't know that any of us have been there. And it was a construction site, so it was kind of hard to see
Yeah.
what was going on, but I'm really curious, and I could just set up a time, but I would think it'd be neat for the whole board to potentially see the facility.
Yeah, that's a great idea. We can reach out to see who's interested, and if everyone can't go at the same time, we could probably break it up into a few groups to do some tours of that facility. It's very it's an exciting site and facility to check out. Just the garage floor alone is about 60,000 square feet, and being able to see all of those buses housed inside in a nice clean facility. And as you know, these buses, particularly electric buses that we'll be getting, you need to keep them in climate controlled environments versus sitting out buried in snow to preserve those batteries and the technology. So and then the upstairs facility where the operations center is, our dispatch center, I think you all will be very impressed with, to see the level of sophistication that goes into the dispatching of our services daily. So yes, we will absolutely coordinate that. And there's a number of other sites too, if there's interest in checking out the housing units. This next month would be a good time because we won't have tenants in there, so we can go in and look at the rooms and look at that facility as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's often turnover on this board. And I learned a lot by going on the trail tour, the CEC tour, and it's just a great way to see more in more detail what RFTA does and what RFTA is responsible for. So as much as we can keep this kind of an ongoing thing, that we get a chance to see all the infrastructure, all the in work and under operations, I think that'd be really valuable.
Yeah, I'd appreciate that field trip element as well. Excuse me. Yeah.
So I just want to go back to Colin's suggestion of having a board meeting there, because we could have a board meeting and then do a tour
Exactly.
too. And
Oh, okay.
it would be kind of cool, rather than trying to find another date that works for a majority of people.
Yeah.
I don't know.
That's more
I'm
efficient.
just saying it's closer for me, so
Understood. I just didn't know if there was a room big enough. I don't know that was how the building was designed, but if it is, I'm all for it.
You had me at the wine and cheese tasting.
So I'm going to go back here a little bit. So the building that we were just referring to does have some space. It's a conference. Losing this. They have a conference room. It's seats about 10 people, but we have a lot of other large spaces where I think we could probably host a meeting. But I went back to this image here. So the project that we're hoping to break ground on later this year, the 6B, that's the building that will be able to bring all of the administrative functions of RFTA together into one space. Currently, we're scattered from Aspen, Carbondale, Glenwood, and all sorts of various leased office spaces. So this will allow us all to be in one location, but on the ground floor. And later this year, we'll likely do some presentations to kind of show you what these facilities will look like. But on the ground floor, there's designed a really nice community space that would allow for meetings like this or trainings or other community gatherings. So it will be a really nice facility for that type of thing. So if we ever wanted to, we could have board meetings at that facility. So.
Geez, all in on.
So that covers the year in review. I think we broke this up into 2 items. So
I just want to see any other questions or comments or. I wanted to just add that it's not part of the RAFTA responsibility, but we completed the Dolores Stutzman Bridge, which will connect to the Rio Grande Trail across the Ring Fork River down at by Jerbossdale, Aspen Village area. That's online now. So there's another bridge in the mix, but RAFTA doesn't have to worry about it. Yeah, Colin.
Well, we've said this a lot last year as we wrapped up the year, but I just want to thank staff for all they've been doing. The COVID pandemic was quite a challenge, and I think RAFTA pivoted and took advantage of some of the funding opportunities to expand its infrastructure and prepare itself for after the pandemic. And I think we're in a great position to expand our services throughout the region. And really kudos to everybody on the RAFTA team. Thank you.
Ditto on that. If I could, since you have that picture up, I'm looking at the Ruby Park bus terminal, and I'm wondering about the charger and the what's the status on the overhead charger? What are those things called?
that is, so we refer to it as an en route charger. So there's kind of 2 types of chargers. There's depot charger, where when it goes back to the garage at night, you plug in and it takes several hours to bring it up to a full state of charge. This en route charger allows for the ability to plug it in and it'll bring it to a full state of charge in like 15 minutes. So the hope with these is that, because as I think we've shared in the past, that our big challenge right now with the battery electric buses is just range. That we get about half of the miles out of an electric bus than we would out of a diesel bus, which then means we need to have twice as many of those buses to do the same amount of work that a diesel bus does. But if we can keep that bus in service without having to bring it back to the garage for a depot charge, then we could get a full day's work out of it. And that's where the en route charger comes into play. We're still working through the commissioning process with the installer of that charger, as well as the bus manufacturer. I'm not sure if there's someone here that has any info. You want to come up to the,
Thank you for that.
we got Ian, our director of operations here.
This information is coming somewhat secondhand. I wasn't there on site at Ruby Park yesterday, but in speaking with our director of maintenance, all the relevant contractors were on site at Ruby Park yesterday to begin doing a soft pull and making sure everything's communicating. For the first time yesterday, we were able to successfully get the pantograph charger, the overhead charger, to communicate with the bus. There was a small system failure on like a burnt out circuit board on the charger that we're going to have to get replaced. That wouldn't allow it to actually successfully charge. But what we've been working on overcoming and getting the charger to actually communicate with the bus has happened yesterday, and that's a huge step for us. So hopefully getting that hardware issue corrected in the coming weeks, we can start getting some serious testing happening with these and hopefully incorporating it into our service plan.
Great. Thanks for that.
Problem.
That's exciting also for our.
Yeah, it has been a somewhat of a frustrating process so far, because we're coordinating with 2 different manufacturers and trying to get them to work together. And anytime you're trying to integrate something like that can be a little bit of a challenge. So, but it sounds like we're getting pretty close to being able to go live.
Standardization of connectors issue sort of thing. Multiple agencies trying to make things fit.
Right.
Great. Well, thank you for pursuing that.
Can I just say, you're in really good shape. They're not Proterras. So,
That is true.
that's what we're struggling with.
Okay.
Has anyone else integrated those solutions somewhere else in the world?
They have.
Okay.
They have, but they act like they haven't when you work with them.
I mean, it's always, technology is always unique, even if the 2 things have been paired before. There's, everybody's a snowflake, essentially.
Yeah, and some of the challenges have been that the bus manufacturer says the equipment and software on the bus is up to date and compatible with the charger, and then you learn that they're not. And then the bus manufacturer has to replace, and just got a lot of back and forth.
Yep, yep.
Well, we know if Soyuz and NASA and SpaceX can all connect to the space station, then I think we can figure this one out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you. They've got a larger budget, yeah.
Yeah, we'll get there for sure. And we do have another one of those en route chargers in the funding mix for that new West Glenwood Transit Center. So we'll be able to have those on either end of our system.
Just a quick question on that. How will Bustang integrate?
There's space provided there at that facility, so they'll be pulling in and dropping passengers at that facility, which will be a huge upgrade for the Bustang network, because if anyone has seen what those folks are standing out in the cold in the winter
Yeah.
with no amenities or so.
I was there at 5:15 a.m. about a week ago, yeah.
Yeah, which is, I think, CDOT was a big supporter of that project and helped coordinate that grant for the projects that included that facility, one in Rifle and one in Grand Junction.
Great.
So, all right. Well, next up, if there are no more questions, we're going to do a look ahead at our 2025 work plan. And
Just want to make sure we don't need to do any other action here. This is just presentation here, so
Yes.
we don't need to.
Just presentation.
Just checking. Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so we're looking ahead at 2025. We can all see my screen. So we do have mixed in our work plan here, we have the 4 board priority objectives that were identified during the summer board summit. The first of which is the Rio Grande Railroad Corridor and Rio Grande Trails appropriately protected, utilized, and accessible to all users. So we all recognize that this is one of the greatest assets of this valley and for RFTA. And there's a big responsibility in terms of ensuring that that corridor is protected and utilized appropriately. So for those who may not know, this corridor was historically an active freight rail corridor. It was then put into a rail bank status, which is essentially sort of a pause button until either freight rail would come back in operation or other mass transit solutions would be provided within that corridor. So with that, there's various requirements and expectations of RFTA to maintain that rail bank status. There were also some funds that were utilized to build the trail system that created conservation easements that we also have requirements to maintain. So we identified for this next year 4 key results to help achieve this objective is 1, developing a formal plan to address encroachments and license agreements. Paul mentioned earlier at the start during consent that we have reduced the number of encroachments down to a handful now. This is an area where we have received board direction at this board as well as through the CEC committee to really start getting a bit more aggressive in terms of resolving these encroachments with those various property owners, which we have been doing. Another issue, though, is also license agreements. So license agreements are anytime somebody needs to access the corridor, whether it be for a utility that they have there, a ditch, or just accessing, going across the corridor to access their property. And that's been an issue for many years of securing those license agreements from all the various entities that need to access the corridor for one reason or another. So that's an area that we're going to be reviewing and developing a plan to approach this next year. We also hope to address all the encroachments, the remaining encroachments this year, as well as implementing a public communication plan explaining RFTA's efforts and the importance of protecting this corridor. I think one of the things that we run into regularly is that there's not a lot of knowledge about the corridor, the status that it's in, the responsibilities that RFTA has in terms of managing and maintaining this corridor, especially when there's turnover that occurs in various member jurisdiction staff positions. You get new folks in and they're wondering why RAFT is being a bad guy about something they might want to do in the corridor or not. So we recognize that, and a lot of people just don't even know RAFTA has any role in this corridor. So we realize that we need to have a communication plan that's probably an ongoing effort to continue to educate the region and our member jurisdictions that we work with at a staff level to understand what our responsibilities are in managing this corridor. And then coordinate with jurisdictions on rail banking initiatives. So that's again an ongoing effort and kind of ties to that number 3 item of just education and communication with our member jurisdictions. So that is our plan to help advance that objective on appropriately protecting and utilizing the Rio Grande Rail Corridor. Moving on, we have another board priority objective, which is provide increased first and last mile options for customers throughout the service area. We identified again 4 key results, many of which is going to be taken on by our board subcommittee that we've established for answering many of these questions that we have regarding first and last mile, RAFTA's role, and funding of those efforts. So first is define RAFTA's objectives for microtransit services. That'll be a question that's on the table for our board subcommittee. Continue implementing bike share programs. So this next year, we plan to expand Snowmass Village operations by Q4 of 2025, and also initiate planning for the Glenwood Springs rollout of bike share. Complete an assessment of our current first and last mile mobility solutions to determine effectiveness. And 4th, identify and establish sustainable funding sources and mechanisms for first and last mile mobility, which again, that board subcommittee will be providing recommendations. So under, I should have noted, this is under our outcome area of accessibility and mobility. We also have a few other work plan items that were not identified necessarily as board priority during the board summit, but there is a possibility that we'll be working with CLEAR, the organization CLEAR, on a transportation management organization study. They received a grant this past year from CDOT to look at establishing a transportation management organization for Garfield County. So that's likely something that we'll be involved with and participating in with the CLEAR organization. As mentioned, the board subcommittee for the FLMM efforts, regional bike share expansion, planning for Glenwood Springs, phase 6A, which is the transit center there at the West Glenwood Park and Ride. We're currently in the process of just securing those grant funds with our granting agencies, Federal Transit Administration and the DOT via CDOT. And once we get the funding all secured and executed with the grants, the hope is that we'll be able to get that bid out on the streets for the construction work, and we'll hopefully be able to break ground later this year. And then we're also within our first and last mile mobility system, Glenwood Springs received a grant from RAFTA to launch a microtransit system similar to Carbondale and Basalt, the downtowner services.
Will that be separate or will that integrate with the current Glenwood, what's it called? The Glenwood?
Ride Glenwood.
Ride Glenwood.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the planning work of just what the boundaries are of that microtransit, I think are still being developed, but it will certainly, the idea of any of our microtransit services that RAFTA helps support is that the microtransit's helping to connect to the RAFTA trunk line.
Great.
Safe Customers, Workforce, General Public, we have an initiative this year to implement a high visibility policy in our organization and apparel for all our employees so that there will be areas, locations where it'll be required to be wearing high visibility personal protection
Is that like
equipment.
a raft of fluorescent green jacket of some
The
sort?
high
Like-
visibility like vests and yeah.
Okay.
Sustainable workforce, thanks. We have another board priority objective, which is to implement RAFTA's comprehensive housing policy, which we were able to develop this past year. Our key results, we have 3 here, is drafting our RAFTA policy guidelines. We do have a draft in place and implementing that. As you all know, in our 2025 budget, we did not initially include a housing stipend within that. We had a number of items that were unknown at the time, particularly regarding our bus operator wages as we were negotiating the CBA. So we weren't able to include a stipend at that time, but that is still a recommendation that came from that housing policy and one that our board asked RAFTA to continue evaluating at our board summit last June. So we are continuing to evaluate that. We're going to see if that's still something that we might be able to bring forward for the board's consideration in 2025. One of the policy items that came from our housing policy was to institute a 5-year limit on being in RAFTA housing. So we do have about 14 employees that we've been working with over the last year to help them transition out of RAFTA housing into free market housing. We've also been refining our rental advance program. That's RAFTA has historically provided a rental advance first and last month security deposit to help employees get into their own free market housing. Sometimes that can be upwards of $10,000 that's asked of a new tenant when they're securing a rental, which can be hard to come up with that amount. So we've provided a loan program historically, but we're now looking to expand that loan program to include other qualifying housing expenses that could be a down payment, or not a down payment, but closing costs, or if someone's buying a property that we could help with. Also develop and begin implementing a communication plan. That's something that is already in the works with primarily for our employee tenants, so that they understand the change in the new opportunities they'll have for new housing units. And then the other big thing that is mostly complete at this point, I believe, is we've transitioned from managing our properties internally to going to a property management solution. So it's taken us a little bit of time, but we've realized that our skills are best suited in running a transportation system and not managing housing. So we've gone to a property management solution, and we've brought on Integrated Mountain Properties to manage our various RAFTA-owned housing units. And that has transitioned to where they're handling not only just the facility management of those properties, but also the leasing of those properties and the point of contact for any issues that a tenant might have while they're at a RAFTA property.
Kirk, can I ask, because I thought that was what that was, but we've talked about that we need somebody to coordinate what the housing options are as we transition people out and as people are looking for, because as you mentioned, the rental assistance kind of program we have, if it's in Eagle County, we have a rental assistance program if someone's moving to a property in Eagle County, and I'm sure other organizations do as well. And so that person has that started?
Yeah, so that was another one of the recommendations from our housing policy, was creating a position of a housing navigator.
Navigator, thank you.
And we did have an internal position. That individual no longer works at RAFTA, so we're still evaluating whether that should be an in-house position, or again, maybe a service that's provided by that property management company or another outside contracted service that can help with providing that navigation. So we're still evaluating what the best arrangement would be, whether that's in-house resource or contracted.
I think I would just say, I think that, well, I probably said it at our retreat. I think that's really an important, because there's so many programs out there from counties and towns, and you just can't know them all unless that's your job.
Right. And that really aligns with our policy too, is that we recognize RAFTA's ability to house all of our employees is limited, and that we're going to have to rely on outside organizations and resources to help house our workforce after 5 years. And there are existing housing programs that exist, whether it's through APSHA or Habitat for Humanity or Garfield County, or the Western Mountain Coalition. And hopefully there's more. Hopefully there are more resources down the road that'll be available to the workforce in this region to help find affordable housing. Moving on from that item to financial sustainability, as usual, we have our annual audit that I know takes up a lot of our finance team's time, as well as developing a budget for 2026. So those will be items. And I should note that the work plan that we're sharing with you today isn't all inclusive. We have probably 5 or 6 more pages of work plan items that the board will probably never see. We're highlighting here the items that we'll likely be bringing forward for board discussion that you'll be involved with. Satisfied customers were one of our initiatives for this year was to conduct a onboard survey. We try to do that every 3 years, and we're scheduled to do that this March. And that's an effort where we have lots of individuals that go out on all of our routes, and we survey our customers. And we have an established survey that we try to keep consistent every 3 years. We are looking at maybe adding some additional questions around first and last mile mobility. There were some things that have come up out of our board subcommittee discussions where we might want to add a few questions to that onboard survey. So we're looking at conducting that this March. We did recognize that not all of our first and last mobility services will be in operation in March. So there, we might want to do a follow-up survey in the summertime when more of those services are available. So moving to our outcome area of environmental sustainability, we do have another board priority objective, which is RAFTA will prioritize energy efficient strategies to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and advance projects that enhance existing services with a responsible budget. We identified 2 primary key results. One is energy efficient strategies. So some of the initiatives that we've come up with this year to help advance this objective is looking at the implementation of fare reductions to increase ridership. We recognize that one of our greatest impacts on the region in terms of reducing greenhouse gas emissions is people utilizing our services. So the more we can encourage that and help reduce barriers to folks utilizing RAFTA services is one of our most effective ways to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. So we're working on a pilot program to reduce fares right now. I think initially we're looking at how we can maybe increase ridership in our off-peak periods where we have more capacity in our system. So folks who might have the availability of flexible schedules that could say, hey, instead of showing up to work at 8, maybe I could show up to work at 9 and ride at a different time and have a free fare as well. So that's the program that we're looking to bring forward this year.
Can I ask a question about that? Well, I love it if initiatives like that come with a price tag, and I'm sure they will. You'll be calculating the cost, but I'm just wondering if we're going to find someone who could help underwrite that the gap between the free fare at off peak and fare gap. I'm just thinking there may be opportunities there for organizations who want to stay in the valley and do something, a climate related, carbon offset sort of thing in the valley. That may be an affordable way for them to have a huge impact if they're getting cars off the road.
Yeah, for sure. We can definitely include that in how we're building this program to if there's any sponsors to be able to help with that lost fare revenue.
Great, thanks.
We're also looking at continuously measuring and monitoring our energy efficiencies across our operations. And collaborating with our Intermountain, our property management, I'll just say that, on employee placement to help minimize travel that they might have from where they're living to where they have to report for work. Also, we have a result of reducing greenhouse gas emissions. So we have the ordering and hopefully taking delivery of those new battery electric buses in 2026. We also are looking to begin electrifying our non-revenue vehicle fleet. So we do have we call them non-revenue vehicles, which basically means they're not buses. Developing a policy for electrifying that fleet. And plan and initiate the RFTA Mobility Hub at West Glenwood Transit Center. So our hope there is with that new facility in West Glenwood that we'll be able to start capturing more of that traffic coming off of I-70 and transitioning them to a bus as they continue their travels in the Roaring Fork Valley. So going on here to our last outcome area. That's as far as it'll go down. We have our board summit that we're going to be planning here. We'll need to discuss with the board. We've done that in June in the past. We may be asking the board if May would be a time that we could conduct that summit. The earlier we can get that direction from the board, it gives us just more time to develop initiatives into our work plan for the following year and obviously into our budget process as well.
Kurt, how soon do you want to have that discussion about May? We get it done today?
We could do it today if folks know their schedules that advance, but we could certainly have that discussion if you'd like right now.
Like the May board meeting, is that?
Yeah.
I would certainly like to. Sound good to you, Colin, David, Aaron? Great. Why don't we aim for May?
Okay.
Simple as that.
All right.
So May 8th.
I
That's what it looks
believe
like.
May 8th. Yes.
And you'll be sending us info on that. Got it.
I may also just throw it out here now as well as we're talking about it. I was going to mention it in the CEO report, but something we'd also like to discuss with the board, and obviously it'll depend on what we have going on, but our bylaws for RFTA require 6 board meetings per year. We typically have 12. So there is an opportunity if there are any times in the year where we are anticipating a light agenda that we could maybe consolidate into a certain month. If there are any times where there's a lot of travel occurring, maybe in the summertime or the holidays, that we can consider maybe not scheduling a board meeting. So we have that flexibility.
Right. That's worth a short conversation, just to take the temperature of everyone. It seems like these are such information dense meetings that it makes me a little bit nervous, but I'd be willing to try every other month, but if that makes sense, but I'd love to see what other people think. You've been doing so much, I want to keep abreast of it. And this is a great way to do it, so I don't want to give that up, but Jeannie may appreciate that.
And it might not have to be in every other month, but just maybe we don't meet in July, or maybe we don't meet in December.
Right. Well, do we need to meet in December for?
We're evaluating that still. that's a question that sort of that we've got out there, because I know a number of other organizations that rely on property tax
Yeah.
seem to adopt their budgets earlier. So we're not sure how they do that, but there could be a possibility.
I'd be in favor of eliminating July and December. December's so crazy and July is just, I feel like a lot of people are gone. So
Right.
we could try it and see if it
Is
works.
it- Why don't you choose the months that you think might work best, poll the board, however you want to do it. Maybe we take a stab at that, maybe go to 10 or 8 or something.
Yeah. Yeah, we could maybe do a poll of the board and
Right.
get some more information.
Colin.
The advantage of this too could be, we have a subcommittee, First Last Mile.
Right.
So it's an extra meeting for actually quite a number of board members. And I can envision potentially some other subcommittees coming forward on some big issues related to RFTA's goals. So this could create some space for those other without overwhelming board members.
Great suggestion.
Well, and I think it's important to note that sometimes business needs to happen. And so skipping a meeting, even if it's on consent, you still have to get the
Right.
board approval for certain things to move forward. And so you have to think about that as well. And
Right.
the budget being one of them in December, but sometimes maybe it's just that we switch to virtual and we get that consent agenda done and
We
it
did in
takes care of
December.
takes care of the board meeting, the board's approval of things that you need.
That sounds great.
Yep.
Thank you.
All right. Well, moving on here with our outcome of high performing organization. Another area that we're looking to advance work on is a capital improvement plan development. Right now, RFTA's capital improvement plan really is just Destination 2040. But there are a number of other things that we need to be planning for on a more long range basis so that we're not finding out about major capital needs the year that it's needed to happen. So that is a big effort that I know Mike Yang is very excited about working on, because it's hard to develop financial forecasts when you're not sure of what your capital needs are. So that's something we'll be working on this year. We also have a very large effort of implementing a new ERP system for the organization. I can never remember what ERP stands for.
Enterprise resource planning.
There you go. Thank you.
Thanks.
So that is essentially the backbone software system that lets you manage all your finances and HR and procurement. And then another one of our capital projects, the 6B, as I mentioned, the administration and training building. We have that under higher performing organization. And in phase 8, that's a storage building that'll allow us to store a lot of our battery electric equipment. We're hoping to break ground on those later this year. And then we also have another bus order of 13 motor coach replacements. So those are our bigger over-the-road coaches like the Mustang buses. We have 13 of those to replace this year as well. So I think that concludes our overview of our 2025 board work plan.
Great. Thank you. That's all. Really. What else? What have we done lately? Right.
Nothing.
Okay. Thank you for that. We're going to move on to board governance. We have Resolution 2504, election of RFTA board officers for 2025. And Paul, your name's on this.
Well, in your packet, there's an identical
Thank you.
memo that we distribute each year to organize the board in the first meeting of the year. And there's a resolution with some blanks that the board should fill in with regard to who will be the officers going forward for this year. And the reminder is that the president of the board and the chair of the board and the vice chair are term limited for 2 terms, but I don't think we have that situation at this point because you are serving in before you were serving in a capacity of filling in as vice chair. So that's just for the information of the board with regard to who you want to consider for the chair in 2025, and other officers And then the recommendation of staff is that the secretary of the board remain and also the treasurer be Mike Yang.
You have to keep Nicole in place. I think Mike should stick around also. Well, it feels awkward. I've never nominated myself for anything. But,
You want me to nominate you?
I nominate Greg for board chair.
okay, thank you. I was about to nominate myself, but you saved me the embarrassment. I'd be happy to do it. I'm going off the board as the chair of the Board of Commissioners in Pitkin County. And so I think I'll have a little bit more bandwidth. Not sure how much more I need because this is such a well-run organization, but I have to say this is the organization in the Valley that I'm most proud to work with. And so it'd be a real honor for me to do that. Enough said, unless you want to ask any
I
questions.
think there's been a nomination.
Actually, do I have to
Well,
actually?
you haven't nominated, but I thought I heard a
Yeah.
nomination.
Yeah.
Well, Colin, I'll let Colin have it.
Well, I second her, she seconded me.
Yeah.
Okay, so any further discussion? Talk me out, talk me down off the list. Jeannie did such a great job and Shelley unfortunately had to leave, but I have big shoes to fill. But, well, all in favor, I can call it. Okay, thank you all for your confidence. Thank you, Art. And I wanted to say that if you think that I can improve the way I do things, please call me and let me know. Thank you.
So then, vice chair.
And we need to nominate our vice chair, and I'm trying to remember who's our acting vice chair.
You.
Me. Well then, I decline.
Chair acting as the chair.
Do we have a nomination for vice chair? I'd like to nominate someone. I'd nominate her, Melissa.
I'd be happy to do it.
Any other
Second.
we already got, okay.
Thanks.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that was easy. Thank you for making it easy for us, and I'm grateful for you to
So
step
then
up.
the next motion would be to adopt the resolution with the blanks filled in.
And so we already have Nicole and Michael from the staff recommendation. Do we need to nominate, or is that?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'd like to have a nomination for both Nicole as secretary and Mike Yang as treasurer budget officer. Do I have a motion? And a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank
Motion
you.
to adopt the resolution as completed.
Okay, and I need a motion to adopt the reso. David,
Second.
second from Alyssa. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay,
That was easy.
we got through that one. Okay, so what do we have to do now? I'm still reveling in the afterglow here.
We're gonna throw you a big party.
What am I supposed to do now?
Inauguration.
Okay, resolution 2025, appointing a board director for Western Mountain Regional Housing Coalition. And Kurt.
Yes, so Shelley Kaup was our previous representative for the Western Mountain Regional Housing Coalition. With her departure, we have a vacancy on that board, and this is an opportunity to nominate a board member to replace Shelley.
Do you have any interest here?
If I could just make a comment about the coalition. So as you know, all the members of RFTA are currently members of the the Regional Coalition. And it's effectively trying to do on housing what RFTA is doing on transit. It's got, it's behind by 20 years. We have a good deeds program that is buying down free market units for purchase based on the work that Eagle County has done. Eagle County, by the way, has a phenomenal affordable housing program that we are borrowing from. And this is our first effort to do that. We now have 8 units that we have bought for members of our community. They own them, we own the deed restrictions. So the person from RFTA on this that would be joining this board, I'm on the board as well from the town of Carbondale, would be really helping to bring a really neat idea to much more fruition and capacity. And we're not recreating the wheel. Eagle County's done most of the work already, But also there's a really neat connection between what the coalition is doing and what RAFTA wants to achieve. This whole housing navigator position could be the regional group. Now, they would need money to do it, but they're already thinking regionally. We're already trying to purchase units throughout the region. We're trying to do down payment assistance. We're trying to do all the things that I think RAFTA wants to do. So I think there's a really neat connection. And so this person would be able to be part of that. And it's a mixture of staff and board members. So it's a nice dynamic in terms of how we're moving these things forward. The big issue is always funding, but it's a really, I think, a very vibrant effort and a neat opportunity, and encourage someone to join in. And Shelley was very helpful when she was on that board for a limited time. So just.
Want to talk about how often you meet and where you meet?
We meet monthly. It's the third Thursday of the month, I believe. We usually meet in Basalt. Again, these things can all be discussed. We do virtual as well. I think, as we all know here, in person is always better than online, but we're trying to accommodate various folks. There are some subcommittees, but again, it's we do have a staff person, and really kind of an exciting time for housing, given the need, and some really neat opportunities to work with all the other local jurisdictions, the school districts, RAFTA, and CMC.
What time do you?
Thanks, Colin.
It's usually like, so today there's a conflict because of the holidays. They're meeting from 10 to 12. Again, these things could be adjusted. We just picked that number last year. So
it's not the second Thursday.
it's not, it's the third. There's a conflict, but just because it would have been harder to do because of the holidays. Great.
Yeah, but you have David. We need a nomination. Anyone else like to propose a nomination? I'm not seeing anybody from the online gallery. Do I need a motion and
Approve David Knight as the RAFTA board rep to the West Mountain Regional Housing Coalition.
I'll second it.
okay,
Sorry,
we have a
Aaron
first and two
seconded it.
seconds. Aaron, great. I think that's a great idea. Thanks, David. All in favor? What, it's a great organization. That's exciting.
Aye.
All in favor? Yeah,
Aye.
thanks. Okay, up next, appointing a board director to the Garfield Clean Energy Board.
Okay, this is an organization we've been a member of for many years. We also contribute funding to their efforts. Jason White has done a tremendous job historically representing RAFTA on that board. Moving forward, we felt that it was best to have one of our board members be the member on that Clean Energy Board. Speaking with Alice Laird, she thought that would be a good idea as well. So for a board member to represent RAFTA on the Garfield Clean Energy Board, they meet the second Friday every other month in Glenwood Springs.
I wanted just to ask, do we have staff liaison for these boards as well? Like would Jason's continue to participate, or how does that work?
Yeah, I think if it's needed, that we could certainly provide a staff liaison.
Right. We find that having
No,
somebody.
I'd
step
like,
in-
but just, I mean, from Carbondale's perspective, Jason has played a great role in representing RAFTA and GCE. He comes to meetings, he gives updates, and I would be really worried about just losing a staff person. In some ways, I'd like to suggest that we allow Jason to keep doing that for continuity and ask a board to be an alternate. So they can get up to speed on what GCE is doing. Very similar to the Housing Coalition, GCE is a strategic partner. All the Garfield County communities are part of it. It's a great way to network and build relationships and also push climate goals. Jason's done a great job doing that. I'd hate to lose that, that knowledge and capacity. And again, it's one of these things that's really good to be there at the meetings to build those relationships instead of being online. So I don't know how people feel about that. It'd be great to have an alternate board member, and let Jason at least do another year so he can transition off instead of it being, kind of.
I'd be willing to do that if it's available to an alternate from this board.
I think I heard Colin say that it was more Garfield Township, Garfield County kind of thing. So, because I was going to say Greg would be logical, but it feels more like you're already there for Carbondale. If Glenwood or Art or somebody, that's just me thinking about it in terms of strategically
So
who should be
I'm
there.
currently the alternate for Glenwood Springs.
Oh.
Ingrid Mayer-Wusso is the primary. She will be off in April. I wonder if I'll end up, so I don't know if can I do that for both? And then just kind of, because I have a sense I may end up jumping in as the primary.
I think the more RAFTA representation, the better. So if you're there as Glenwood
Right.
and then someone else, I don't know, Colin or Art, I don't know. I just feel, I think I heard more Garfield.
Well, it
focus.
is, but I mean, I think there's, again, they think regionally and it's about building relationships and it's some continuity and making sure that people can participate. I don't know that it would be bad for a commissioner for Picken County to be involved. But again, I think it's really pretty important that Jason, I think, be allowed to continue in his role. Otherwise, I think we're going to lose a lot of capacity and institutional knowledge going forward.
Jeannie, this is Art. I need to pick and choose my battles. I'm still recovering from the open heart. So I would have to decline the idea, but thank you.
Thank you, Art. Thanks for that.
Well, I would say the Picton is looking for more ways to interact with Garfield, especially with Perry on the commissioner now. So I don't see it as a
Right.
problem that I'm not from Garfield.
No, I'm sorry if I
live about a
misunderstood.
mile from Garfield.
So I wanted to circle back. Thank you, Francie, for that. And that's an intriguing thought. We do try to figure out how we can, partner with Garfield on various things. So that's great.
And clean energy
That'd be one of
is a
them.
reasonable way.
And you like to get in, scuffles down there. I know that. But I want to circle back with Aaron. It sounds like you may be cycling onto this board in April anyway.
I don't know for sure. That's the sense I get. So that's
Right.
why I was like, if you wanted, however the board would like to handle that, I'm willing to step in whatever role, whether it be an alternate so that, if I end up primary or do it in the interim while the weather is funky until you can get down to Glenwood comfortably, whatever suits the board.
Got it. I want to hold my board on this. I just want to get
I mean,
input.
Glenwood would probably need another alternate than if you know what I mean? Like,
I know. And like I said, I'm just making an assumption. I don't even know for a fact that I'll end up stepping into that. But historically, if there's an alternate and then the primary steps away, the alternate would step up. And
Well,
so
would you
that's why
like
they're
to have that
meeting.
seat from Garfield? Like, does it make sense to you?
It
pursue
makes
that way?
sense. It's in my hometown, but I don't want to take the opportunity for some collaboration between counties. I think that's always
But
beneficial.
you're already doing it for Glenwood, right?
I'm the alternate, so I'm not, and I literally only go if Ingrid can't because I have a lot of other, so.
Well, I'm going to go ahead and nominate Francie
Perfect.
since she was willing to do it and I gummed up the works. Sorry.
Thanks, Jeannie. I have a nomination and a second. Further discussion?
So we're okay letting Jason continue in his role?
That's
I think that's a staff call, isn't it? I mean,
Yeah.
do we have that much
You
direction?
guys want to talk internally, but I think I'd highly recommend we continue that for at least another year to let GC adjust to new people.
I'm looking at Jason's facial expressions. You know, he seems to be okay back there.
Well, I think our intent was to have a board member as the primary representative, as that's how most of the organizations have their elected body representing on that board. What we could do is have Jason continue to attend to support our representative with any information over the next year to help with that transition so that they attend together. But we have the elected official as the official RAFTA board representative.
I think that's a way to go. Staff liaison makes perfect sense and can be ongoing if that makes sense in a year. I'm going to call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Great.
Aye.
Thank you, Aaron. And we're going to see you cycle on there in a few months.
I
perhaps.
anticipate that, yeah.
Yeah, great. So that's, God, we get everything we want. We got everything we wanted. Okay, we're moving on to the next item, CEO report. Kurt?
Yes. Well, let me see if I can share my screen. As we mentioned during our year in review, we opened our 70,000 square foot operations center on December 16th, where our first bus pulled out of that facility to go into service. And there's a few images here I've included in the CEO report that show that facility in operation. We've got a great new indoor area for our bus operators to check in and mingle and have a lunch break or get ready for their shift. And it's just a really great new facility. And when you go over there and you see the people in the spaces using it, and you see the smiles and see how well it's working, it's really rewarding to be able to provide an amenity like this to our workforce. It's definitely positioned us to be able to not only continue to serve the Roaring Fork Valley, but positions us well to be able to take on any future growth that may be needed to continue to support this region's transportation needs. So with that, we go into our monthly metrics on our ridership. We exceeded last year's December ridership. You can see we had 577,000 passenger boardings. Our year-end ridership, we broke 5 million by 36,000 passenger trips. So, but we did it. So we were very excited about that. There's a number of other detailed reports here. You can see breaking out our system by service area. So I encourage you all to take a look at that, and happy to answer any questions if there's anything on our performance metrics. We also include a report from our finance team, Mike Yang. But again, with the year just starting, not a whole lot of new information to share at this point than what we've already shared. So if there's any questions from the board on the CEO report, I'd be happy to answer those.
I know we have X Games coming in 2 weeks, and how are we tooling up for that? Extra drivers, more shifts?
Yeah, see if
Okay, here we
our
go.
Director of Operations can speak to that.
We are gearing up for kind of what we consider our Super Bowl in the operations department, which is the Winter X Games. There's a number of operational changes that have been implemented this year on the actual event side. For the first time ever, it's going to be a 100% ticketed event, where in the past it was free to access for all. Over the years, they've been layering on more and more ticket access. We're anticipating this year that at capacity, the most people that will be on site at any given time attending will be 5,000 people, which is somewhat of a reduction from years past. We've been working with Aspen Ski Co. They are pursuing bringing in a third-party contractor with Hermes Transit, who we've worked with in the past to provide transit services. And given our staffing levels, we should be in a healthy position to throw in a few extra buses, but it shouldn't be as impactful, hopefully, as it has been in years past.
Great, thank you. If I could ask, what is the financial obligation? You know, what is the cost to RAFTA for this, and are we compensated? I'm not familiar, can't remember if we had the county talks about this, you know, what are we subsidizing this event and to what extent, and, you know?
Yeah, I'll have Mr. Yang jump in if I misrepresent anything, but we do have a service agreement with Aspen Ski Co. Where we charge them a specific charter rate for all of the hours and miles that are associated with providing extra service for this event, along with the supervisory staff. Then that is reimbursed through somewhat of a complicated process with the EOTC has some funds that are earmarked specifically for this service.
That's pretty good.
Okay.
Thanks for that reminder. The OTC, we talk about it there. Yeah.
Yep.
Other comments, questions, thoughts on that? Okay, thank you. Thanks for that.
Easy for us to approve because we have so many EOTC meetings.
Francie can't wait for the next COTC meeting.
Maybe March.
Okay, where are we? What do you need, Kurt?
Yeah, just if there were any more questions on the CEO report. Other than that, I think we can,
Can I ask you a question, Kurt?
Yeah.
Since we changed the under 18 fare to $1, do we have any idea of how that's been, like more or less kids riding the bus? I'm just curious. Like, you don't have to tell me today, I was just thinking about it.
yeah, unless Mike has an answer for you, we can follow up with you with a response.
I don't have off the top of my head, but I know that we'll check with all the data that we do collect
Yeah.
to see if we do have the ability to parse that out.
Yeah, I was just
Yes.
curious if, that increased bus ridership for kids are using it more frequently, never using it, and using it now. Like, I don't know, just out of curiosity.
Right. Yep. On that same note, I'd love to know just about how the music festival in Aspen in the summer, with the music festival ridership, both with Recycle and with RAFTA, as I understand that, there's a rush for bikes at the ends of the concerts for all the, the musicians getting back to the campus, and I'd love to understand that as well at some point. Thank you.
And you should be able to see some of that in the CEO report in our metrics. We do call out the music school services.
What do you know? Great.
Could I ask a question too, while we're on this ridership thing?
Yeah.
So the people getting on with their skis and boots and all of that, is that going to continue to be an okay thing?
I'll ask our director to come up again and because I think we do have a specific policy on that topic.
Sorry, I was reviewing some X Games service agreements, so I was multitasking. So I heard
Folks bringing their skis and equipment on the bus.
yes, as of right now, we still plan on allowing that practice, mainly based on customer feedback around some potential slush and debris hitting skis that are on the side of a bus. And if folks are particularly protective of a very nice set of skis, we have allowed them to bring them onto the bus. We ask that they follow all the normal FTA guidance on allowing aisles and seats to be clear of those. So if there's a need to evacuate the bus, it's not impeding that process, but it's a policy we've been continuing to allow folks to bring on, and that's based on customer feedback with the concerns folks have on damage to skis being on the racks themselves.
The customers who own skis,
Yes.
not the other customers. Yeah, it is a little nerve wracking to be sitting with a person holding a pair of skis, standing right in front of you. And I'm just wondering if we're going to go on with that, because when the buses are crowded, they take up the aisles with their skis and stuff. So, I mean, plus it makes it much faster for them to board when they can carry their skis on. So there's that. So I'm not saying I'm opposed to it. I'm just saying it is a little nerve wracking for some riders to have, particularly some of our senior skiers, sort of standing in front of them, not holding skis, holding boots, not holding on, it's like, it's not the best situation, but.
Yeah, I don't know if we haven't done much of an evaluation of if there's any anything we can do to the interior of the buses to potentially make like either designated areas for folks to, or for folks with skis on board to sit with them. We have, we've done a little bit of analysis of what we can do in terms of making the exterior ski racks more appealing in terms of not having slush and spray come up on those and putting brush guards back on the wheel wells.
I see.
I know that was a conversation me and Mr. Yang were having recently. That's where the conversation stands at this point is for this winter season, at least we're not looking at making any changes to that policy.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thanks for that. Before you go, I do use the ski racks on the bus. And I've learned to put my skis in the farthest back rack possible to keep the spray off. If you're up near the front, yeah, you do get a coating on one side of your skis. And, maybe there's a shield at the front of the rack itself that could help, keep the spray off from that. Maybe it's not such a great area. But I was trying to figure out a ski rack solution for my new car. And I don't want to put a rack on the top. There's a rack that you can put in the back of the car that could go in the luggage bay of the bus that allows you to stack. It's called it's a tower, or it's like a V shape that will hold multiple pairs of skis. And I don't know if it would be too cumbersome, but if that door opened and people's skis were right there and they could pull them out of the bay, having just set them on one of these racks, and I could share with you that, maybe there's another solution for that slushy mag chloride coating the skis all get.
Keep them off the, yeah.
Yeah. So
No,
that might be-
and I think for our Upper Valley, like skiers specific services between Aspen and Snowmass, we don't see those issues as much, but especially with buses commuting on Highway 82 is where we encounter that a lot more. So I think it's something we can look at how our regional buses are set
And the
up.
road coaches, the ones that probably do have a luggage bay, are the hardest ones to get your skis on, because the hallways, the corridors seem narrower and the.
And they have fewer ski racks on the exterior.
Right, yeah. Okay, well, thanks for considering that. Thank you for bringing it up, Francie.
Yeah, I think we'll continue to look at solutions to where we can improve that situation.
I think the speed of loading is a pretty significant counterbalance to the discomfort in the bus for some people.
Right. The speed of loading, wearing ski boots, carrying up your bags and your skis and poles, sometimes that's kind of slow too.
That's
It
true.
gets really clunky, you get stuck.
Getting hit in the shin with a ski
Right,
boot or a ski
exactly.
probably.
Yes, we have.
Counterpoint, that equipment is expensive, like a tech binding. No one's gonna put that on the outside of a bus. Like,
Yeah.
it's
For sure.
just way too finicky and nice.
Yeah.
Right. Well, it's 10:02. We're 4 minutes ahead of schedule. Issues to be considered at the next meeting. What have you got for us for the next meeting?
I think this is an opportunity if the board has anything that they'd like staff to bring forward. We can consider adding that to our agenda. Otherwise, we'll bring a draft agenda to you, Mr. Chair, when we meet at our agenda review.
Great. Suggestions, comments? Of course, I have one, and that is just, as we look at all these systems, first, last mile, organizing with the Glenwood Connect and the various other connections, it'd be great to have a report just on software and the app progress, if it's not too soon for that. Are we, trying to create a single app that can get you to any transportation medium you want?
Yeah, I can talk with David Pesnicek, our COO, who's overseeing a lot of that, and see if there's something we could bring forward next month on that subject.
Great. Thank you. Anything else? Everybody's sitting on their hands this morning. You want to get out of here? Is that what it is?
Oh,
I did have a question though. Are we going to DC? Is RFTA going to DC?
we're still evaluating. If there are any grants that we'll be pursuing that we feel need congressional support for, we may be going. We're talking with our sustainable strategies team who kind of guides us on those efforts to see if we need to, if we have any grant requests in, so it'll require that. But we'll let you know.
Great. Thank you for that. Okay. Sorry. Hands up. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
We can hear you, Tori.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Let's see. I just had two questions that were brought to me. One person was asking me about the coach style buses that are used primarily BRT. Um, do those have below storage? Do those have underneath storage? And do we not use it?
I think the answer is yes and yes. But I'll see if Ian has. I think it's been determined that Ian will be at all of our future board meetings.
I was thinking, I'll attend virtually in the future. Yes, our motor coach industries buses do have underbelly luggage containers or luggage storage areas. Historically, we have kept those locked and inaccessible to the public, primarily due to the amount of travel time that would add with having the operator need to get out of the seat, open the luggage rack, remove whatever item was stored in there, and making sure that our buses can stay on time. So mainly those have stayed locked due to those additional travel time concerns. There's also been some concerns, if you've ever seen the inside of one of those areas, it is really just a large metal box, and there's not much in the way of padding or securement for whatever we place in there. So outside of a few very special events, we've kept those locked. I believe during some winter X Games events, we have opened those to put ski racks or skis down in below those when buses need to service the X Games venue. But that's been the reason we haven't allowed the public to use those, is the concerns around travel times and whatever property is being stored in there becoming damaged from rattling around.
Thank you so much. And then second question was related to free fares. And, it comes up often where people wonder about fares, free fares, and if that would increase ridership. And I'm just wondering if we have any plans for a pilot program or a test week or anything around free fares to see if that is would be a enhancement to ridership.
Yes. In our 2025 work plan, we are planning to bring forward a pilot to look at a reduced or likely probably free fare period in our off-peak times to see if we can maybe shift some of the travel patterns and more people riding in our off-peak times, taking advantage of that additional capacity that we have in the system during those periods. So right now we're looking at a pilot to do reduced or free fares during our off-peak period. We'll be bringing more information about that forward as the year progresses.
Thank you.
Great.
Off-peak time of days or off-peak season?
Off-peak time of day.
Thank you. Thanks, Tori. Okay, our next meeting is that February 13th.
So, yes.
Okay, so our next meeting will be February 13th. And then we're not going to switch to a fewer meeting schedule that quickly. So we'll be here next February 13th. And then next meeting, oh, okay, sorry. I'm not reading far enough down here as I go. All I can think of at this point is getting a motion to adjourn unless someone else has any other business. No one wants to leave?
So I'll second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you all.
Thanks.